Welcome to Sarder TV. I'm Vaishali Jain. We're excited to have Horst Schulze join us today. Mr. Schulze is the co-founder of the iconic hotel brand, the Ritz Carlton, and he's the author of the book, Excellence Wins, and he's here to tell us more. Mr. Schulze, thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you here.
It's nice to be here. Thank you.
So you're the founding president and former COO of the Ritz Carlton Hotel Company, which Marriott International bought in 1998. Tell us a little bit about your role as the former COO and as one of the founding presidents.
I was founding vice president operations, and then I became president, but nothing changed. I did the same thing. I reported to the chairman and owner of the company. So yes, I mean, I was there. I was hired to run the operations of the company when the company had 2 hotels in construction. They decided rather than go with another brand, they wanted to start their own brand. So I worked for Hyatt at the time. They came to me, offered me a job. I started a dream about what I would do with that new company. The dream controlled me, and I left behind my golden handcuffs and all the great things of a great company and moved to Atlanta to start a new one. A little bit over a year later, we opened our first hotel in Atlanta. And the rest is history. I left when we had about 50. I opened about 55 Ritz-Carltons. We lost some in between, and retired.
So you and your team took over in 1983.
That's
correct,
correct.
Right? Okay. Can you give us a little history of the iconic brand of the Ritz-Carlton?
Interesting enough, at the time there was Mr. Ritz started Ritz in Europe, the Ritz hotels in Europe. After he passed, his family came to the United States and created Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company. They brought it up to 11 hotels, but they all bankrupted. They were all gone, except Boston. Boston, consequently, was the owner of the name. But in the meantime, it was an old, very dilapidated hotel. As we were building our 2 hotels in Atlanta, we purchased the hotel in Boston because of its location, and the name was registered. We didn't think it was a great name because the hotel was totally dilapidated. We closed the hotel and renovated it. But so the first Ritz-Carlton that really opened, that new company, was the Ritz-Carlton in Atlanta and Buckhead. A year later, we reopened Boston also. So that is the beginning. And of course, the name then was reestablished as a great name. There was always this name Ritz out there. But we, of course, looked what Ritz meant, and it was what I wanted to do. I had worked in those type of hotels in Europe. I grew up there. And that's what I wanted to do. The leading hotel companies in the world at the time was Hyatt, Intercontinental, Hilton International. And my decision was simply, we move a market segment above. Not just compete with them, but kind of pull the top travelers out of this and build hotels accordingly and bring a service element in accordingly. And that was a simple decision, really.
Tell us what trends you're seeing in the luxury market.
Oh, it's pretty clear what's happening now. There's a consolidation of more and more hotels. There's brands that own 20 brands and so on. And it all is really, forgive me, becoming a sleeping commodity. They're not really hotels anymore. They're places to go to sleep and for shelter. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a good business. And I'm being attacked because I say that sometimes. But it's a fact. It's a good thing. It's the right thing to do. But because of that, the individual hotels that come up now, that the individualized, that are not connected to the big brand, are becoming the luxury leaders in the world. And the very small companies like Capella. Those are the companies that take over the top market segment. And of course, there was a change anyway. What was considered luxury was splitting into ultra luxury and affordable luxury. That's not only true in the hotel business. For example, 25 years ago, if you would have asked anyone, what's the luxury car, you would have said Mercedes. Today, you most likely will say Bentley. That's the difference which is happening right now here.
So how would you define ultra luxury in the hotel space?
Yes, ultra luxury. In luxury, I have a great story. By the way, luxury, the word luxury has changed. Luxury, when we started Ritz-Carlton, was marble and chandeliers and oriental rugs and so on. Luxury today, to the discerning traveler, is do it my way, to do it the way the customer wants it. Now, if I have a larger luxury hotel of 300, 600 rooms, I cannot do everything for everybody. Everything for everybody. The ultra luxury says, do it my way, the way I want it. So a luxury hotel would be smaller. The luxury customer says, I don't like conventions in the hotel. I don't like big groups in the hotel. But you need to do that when you have a large hotel. So luxury hotels are smaller. Ultra luxury says, I do everything for you, customer, as long as it is legal, moral, and ethical, anything. For example, in Capella, we don't have a check-in time or check-out time. You could never do that in a large luxury company.
So you mentioned the Capella Group, which is the brand that you started after you left the Marriott.
That's correct. That's correct.
Tell us a little bit about the Capella Group, the ultra-luxury hotels that you created, and what the differences were with this group versus some of the hotels like the Ritz-Carlton.
Well, when I retired from Ritz-Carlton, I retired on a Friday, and I told my wife on a Monday I'm going to want to start it again, because I could see this ultra-luxury demand happening from our customers. And I wanted to do that, and I wanted to be one of the first ones who really did this and hopefully did it right. And I knew the difference is I cannot have large hotels because the ultra-luxury customer doesn't like conventions. So I knew I have to limit it to about 100 rooms. If you're in a city like New York, where you have all transients, single customers, you could go higher. You could go maybe up to 200. But since the average stay in a hotel like that is 3 or 4 nights, in a 100-room hotel, you would have about 25 people arriving and departing. You can do everything. If you had a 400-room hotels and you have a group checking in with 200 rooms and other innovations, you can't do everything. So what we do is we actually contact the customer before they come and say, what can we do for you when you're here? We are your expert in Singapore, for example. Anything goes, as long as legal, moral, and ethical. Anything goes. We pick you up, you have a diet, you have an allergy, we make arrangements in the theater, in the museums, everything goes. We are here for you. There's no check-in time, there's no check-out time. Everything goes. We are here for you. And so that is ultra luxury. Of course, the surrounding has to be fitting, but with the understanding that's not seen anymore by that customer as luxury. They're assuming that, and they have it at home. We're not giving them anything special, no matter how well we are set up, by how good the marble is. It doesn't matter. They have something better at home. So the meaning to them is, while I'm here, really take care of me the way I want you to take care of, not your rules.
How will your book help leaders and organizations that are in any industry, not just the hospitality industry?
Well, the book really has nothing to do with hospitality. Of course, I refer to it, because on the end, business is the same in anything, in a shoe store or in a hardware store, or it doesn't matter, or in a bank. You're taking care of guests, customers, patrons, whatever you call them, with your employees. They take care of them. So how do you process that so it happens exceptional? And that is really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the customer, focus on the market, the employee, and the leader. And if they come together properly, if that is aligned properly, talking about alignment, everybody, it's a buzzword today, but it doesn't exist. So if that is aligned properly, then the business will work. And I would make a wager that any company that really concentrates on that, concentrates on the market, that's not happening very much anymore. We concentrate on the money rather than on the things that make money. That's a fact. Because why? Because we're driven. Who is applauded? Who is promoted? The one that makes more money. So the whole concentration becomes money, sometimes at the cost of the product, which eventually would destroy a brand. And that's what I'm talking about. What is it and how do we process so that great attention to the market happens, that we lead the employee, that the employees are actually aligned, that we not just talk about it.
Can you give us an example?
I was recently I was talking to a group, be careful that you don't mention the name, and they talked to me about their vision and about the company, the purpose of the company. And I said, is everybody in the company aware of that purpose? Oh, absolutely. I went to several of their branches, talked to at least 50 people. Nobody ever heard it, but they talk about alignment. If I have to hire the employee, first of all, I don't hire employees, I select employees for a specific job category to be sure that I have the talent that's needed in that category. And then the next thing, I align the employee in orientation to the objective, to the purpose of the company and the motive of that purpose, and show them that their motive and line fits the motive. Now they're aligned. And then I tell them what the customer expects from us. Now they're aligned to the objective, to the purpose, and to the customer. Incidentally, purpose is what people, human beings, need to feel fulfilled. Yet we hire people to fulfill a function rather than be part of a purpose, which is sad in itself. You see, the chairs in which we're sitting is fulfilling a function, yet we're dealing with human beings. And what's the process that I accomplish? That the employee feels they're part of a purpose, but otherwise they're actually aligned.
So in the first chapter of your book, you outline how a lot of times leaders and organizations make assumptions of what the customer wants and values.
Exactly.
Where is the disconnect there?
Well, the disconnect is that any assumption by yourself is a study of one. You're serving a whole market. One has to understand what the market wants in my business segment, in my business, in my segment. What does that segment really want from me? And then concentrate. For example, we identified 20 things that our segment expected from us. And those 20 things were our golden rules. And I knew if I do those 20 things superior to the competition, I would be the better company. So we concentrated on those 20 things. Those are the 20 things that would make money. Those are the 20 things we hired people for, selected people for. We oriented people toward those 20 things. We sustained it. We repeated one of those 20 things once a day. If you heard one today, in 20 days you heard the same point again. We keep on concentrating on those points that make us superior to the competition. And guess what? It happened. I can assure you, we know that in the time when I was running Ritz Carlton, in every location we were there, in every country we were the leader. So it had nothing to do with culture or anything to do with that. It had to just concentrating, hiring human beings and not people that fulfill functions. Hiring you, align them to what we are, show them that they're important as human beings within our organization, teach them what the guest wants, make them enjoy doing it. All that is accomplished by the process.
How did you get to the point of figuring out and understanding what your customers' core values were?
Well, we made major studies, what they want. We didn't ask one or two people. We made market studies, and then we kept on listening what the feedback of the customers. Today, that's actually very easy. Today, I would look what does the internet. What do they say on the internet about my competition, what they like and what they don't like, and about me, etc., etc. You study it and you know, and most of all, be careful about trends. What's the trend? What did you have? What's the feedback that keep on repeating? Analyze it, apply it, create a process so it's delivered or it's taken out of delivery. whatever.
In your book, you talk a little bit about benchmarking as a tool and some of the pros and cons of benchmarking. Can you talk about those a little bit?
Benchmarking is, I'm going to look what the competition does, basically. And the negative is they may do it wrong. That's why I'm going to come right back. Concentration on your market. That's where it is. And benchmark, of course, I may see something from the competition that is right. I test it and it works fine. Or I can actually identify that their guest likes it. Of course. I'm not totally dismissing it. But to count on benchmarking and not concentrating on your market segment is a serious mistake.
You know, as you talk about understanding the customer, what their values are, you know, there's a lot of information, like you said, out there that we can use. There's different tools to get that information and data.
And there's studies you can buy.
And there's studies, right? But there's so much information. What is it that leaders and organizations should be doing to make sure that they're really getting to the root cause, deciphering the information in a way that's going to get them that the data that they need, and not just sort of scratching the surface?
Clearly, if there's something new, you pilot it. You don't just take it for granted. You make a pilot and test it and see if it works or not. And frankly, I have made some serious mistakes there. I can tell you a serious mistake. In the beginning, I was very proud. The first hotel, I had what was called wing cards, the plastic card that opens the door. I was very proud because that's the right thing today. That's the future. That's what I'm going to do. Guess what? The guests didn't like it. The guests came in. This is a luxury hotel. Give me this silly plastic card, because it wasn't known. And so I actually had to change all locks. But 3 years later, they said, they give me a hard key. What if the guest uses that key to come into my room? When I lose it and it comes into my room, we had to change it back to plastic cards. You see, here was me making the decision. And it was the right decision only 3 years later. It wasn't the right decision. So I wasn't listening to the market. I was listening to myself. And that is a real danger, or to your mother-in-law, or somebody who sits beside you in the plane. Those are studies of one. Stay away from it.
So one of your very popular policies was to allow every employee, from your busboy to your manager, to spend up to $2,000 to solve a customer's problems. Tell us more about this.
Well, of course, that created a firework when I started that one. I created major fireworks. People were shocked. People were absolutely dumbfounded. But it wasn't a silly decision. It was very clear to me, in my market segment, I want to keep the customer. That is the most important thing that I do. If somebody walks into our hotels, we convince them to want to come back. That's it, even if something negative happens. And particularly then, that's a great chance. So how to do that? But by the way, I of course knew that my average age of my customer was 43 years old. They have 30 more years to travel potentially. I knew what they were spending. I knew they could be worth $200,000. So I was happy to spend $2,000 to keep them. So, and a study showed that the customer, when they had a problem, that 96% of them just want to get rid of their frustration. So when they tell somebody, this is what happened, instead of saying, I called the manager, we taught our employees to say, please forgive me. In fact, I feel so bad that your TV didn't work. I buy you breakfast. Wow. The customers were blown away, very simply. They were I heard so many comments, they were so excited about it, they immediately moved from dissatisfaction to loyalty. And loyalty, we are here to create. So it was a business decision, according to everybody's shock. And at the same time, though, I told every employee in the company, I trust you. You are part of this company. As such, I trust you. We trust you. And that was so it was a double sword. It was positive and all the way around. Nobody ever gave $2,000. They did all kind of things to the excitement of the customer, but nobody ever gave $2,000.
Tell us how this paid off. 2-3 years down the line in terms of, as a business?
Customer loyalty went out the roof. Everybody and people had heard it. Those are because, for example, we had one case in Cancun where the honeymoon couple, the young man lost his ring in the sand the first day, and of course they were digging for it. The more you dig for it, the more it's gone. Obviously, after the beach closed, the 4 beach attendants ran to a store and bought 4 metal detectors. They found the ring. Well, what would have happened if they would have gone and see the manager? The manager would have said, silly to spend the money, won't find it anyway, or buy one, and they wouldn't have found it. They made a decision. They were empowered to take care of this guest, and we found that ring. Well, that guest wrote letters to every TV station, every radio station, every newspaper. The advertising was worth millions. And so this kind of, and this repeated, those kind of incidents, not the ring, but other incidents repeated. The PR that we got out of that was dramatic. So in itself there, and of course, this is not speaking about the loyalty those customers now have to the brand.
You spoke about this a little earlier around the rise of individualization and personalization of products and services. Can you talk a little bit more about what you're seeing and what some of the trends are?
Well, it is not easy in our industry. It is very difficult in other industries. For example, fast food. The millennials will say more and more, I want this hamburger, I want 2 slices of pickles and half a slice of tomato and a little bit. With other words, they want it individualized, which will be very difficult in fast food because suddenly they have total new complexities. In our situation, they're saying, I don't want to do it your way, I want to do it my way, as I said before. So giving the fundamental need to the customer and add individualization, that will create loyalty. I'll do it your way, I do it personally. I know what you like when you buy anything, you the customer. I know you want the product to be defect-free, so I have to create processes to make it defect-free. I know you want everything timely, so I have to create process on that. But I also know you want me to care for you and be very friendly. If you buy a bottle of water, you want it defect-free, timely, when you want it, and you want the people who give it to you to be nice to you. So I create processes around that. But now if I add to it and do it your way and treat you with your, call you by your name and give you, and no, I know you want a certain brand and have it right there for you, respond to you individual. Now I'm creating ultimate service. And by the way, it drives loyalty very fast. The rest of it creates maybe satisfaction, but not loyalty. You want loyal customers. Loyal customers, all it means is they trust you. If I give you that type of attention, you trust me. And that's what it's all about.
So these are some examples that you've provided in personalization and some level of customization. What are some of the challenges that organizations face in actually implementing processes like these?
Well, as I said before, like in the fast food business, it creates new complexities. They're telling you, so we have to adjust our whole system sometimes to be able to respond to this customer, and we cannot escape that. We see it very clearly. The millennials say, do it my way. And they say, what's in it for me? Those are the two things. Those are the two big millennial things. Do it my way and what's in it for me. So I cannot ignore that the whole market, which is growing into everyone pretty soon, wants that. So I have to look at my organization and say, how do I adjust? What complexities that I have instituted that are not really needed, that I did for myself, what can I take out, and so that I have less complexity so I can respond to the customer. And that is, of course, different in every industry, totally different in every industry. In my industry, in the luxury market, it's easier to respond. They say one time, I like chocolate cookies. Well, we know it. Give you chocolate cookies the next time you check in. Everything that I know that you express once, we capture and make sure you get it. You like this room, we make sure you get that room, etc. And that's all individualization.
Your book defines the 3 steps to excellent customer service.
Yeah.
Can you go through those steps?
Well, you know, of course, you have to understand in our business we hire Center City kids that are many of them high school dropouts and so on. Now we have to bring them in and teach them. First of all, we have to make them elegant. Suddenly, this kid serves the chairman of the board of the Bank of England. And of course, we have to define service. Everybody talks about service, and then you ask, what does it mean? What is the definition? There's nothing there. You hear nothing. Well, service starts the instant you make contact with the customer. Not a half a second later, that instant. And it, by the way, behavioral analysts tell me that is when a customer comes within 9 feet. Why? I don't know that. Or after 3 rings on the telephone, whatever. In that moment has to be excellent. So the first step of service is a great hello, a great greeting, not hey, welcome, or good morning, sir. Saying right away to the customer, I care for you, you're important to me, you can trust me. Trust, I want to accomplish trust. The second step of service then, in any business, is to comply to the needs of the customer. The wishes and needs of the customer. Comply caringly, supporting. And the third step is, thank you for allowing us to serve you. Goodbye. So there are 3 steps. And you have to say, how do I manage each of those steps sufficiently to the customer? And again, and then process it, and then improve it.
One other thing that you talk about in your book is how customer service doesn't just extend to the public. Customer service is something that happens within organizations, in between employees.
That's very important to understand.
Tell us more.
It's just very important to understand that internally, the internal customers. In my business, and every industry can easily identify that, who serves whom. And for example, in my business, the chef, the cook serves the waiter, and the waiter the customer. If that's not understood, the flow of business will not be properly executed. But if it's truly understood, if the cook says, how do you want me to serve you, to the waiter, if that is clearly established, now the flow of business, there is no problem, there's no stoppage there, there's no blockage in that flow of business to the customer. It doesn't matter, it has to flow right. That's part of the efficiency, part of being correct. If the waiter says, this guest wants spinach instead of potatoes, the cook has to say yes and not have an argument that doesn't belong there. And that used to happen in the hotel business. That used to be norm. It is not anymore, because I hope not. It didn't exist in our hotels, I promise you. It was flowing right. So we made sure that the internal customer was, that they spoke together and said, okay, how does the flow work? And that in itself creates respect and a great work environment. So it works together, everything. And must be understood. We must have clear understanding how work flows and understand who is whom's internal customer. The manager is the internal, the employees are the internal customers of the manager.
So here you're really talking about managing versus leading. Tell us more.
For example, how does it work? How is the manager, how are the employees the internal customer of the manager? For example, in an opening of a hotel, I opened and taught every Ritz-Carlton, the first 50 plus Ritz-Carltons. I spent time with the employees. I made it a habit to meet with each department for a while. And I asked the manager to sit by and not say anything. And I asked the employees, what do you want your department to be 6 months from now? And believe it or not, everywhere, in every culture, every department, from the dishwashers departments to the marketing department, they all said, we want to be the best. I said, oh, what does that mean? Now it was only employees talking. And they said, we want to be efficient, we want to be clean, we want to be respected, we want to be everything, a mission statement for themselves, that you would have not dared to give them. And when I was finished with it, and I said, manager, stand up. I said, here's the manager. He's here. That's his role, to help you to accomplish this. That's the leader's role, to help them without compromising. Without compromising. But the manager's leader's role is to help them to accomplish that. And I can assure you, the employees have a higher expectations of themselves than you would have of them. I've seen it around the world in every culture.
And how did that pay off?
It pays off that they work together, that they respect each other, that they have a great work environment, that they created their own purpose within the department, not only within the company. Now, purpose. Aristotle wrote about it and said human beings need purpose and belonging. Guess what? In this moment, they establish, in fact, their own purpose. They felt like a belonging and not just being controlled. They knew that there's a leader, not a manager that controls. But that's incidentally the difference between managers and leaders. That's right there. They lead them to something excellent. He helps them to move to something excellent, to define themselves as excellent. It's a great, leadership is a great, beautiful thing.
How does this help turn around an attrition in organizations and in industries that have especially high?
Dramatically. When we in Ritz Carlton, we have to understand our industry, the hotel and restaurant industry at the time had over 100% employee turnover annually. All your knowledge that they give walks out the door constantly. We didn't pay more, but our turnover was around 20%. So the knowledge we gave was staying in much more. And it created an ownership attitude by the employees. That, by the way, is why we were able to empower them with the $2,000, because we knew they felt like they belonged. When we taught how to do that, we knew it was sticking, and etc. So it had traumatic meanings.
Tell us how you used root cause analysis to solve the problem of slow customer service when you first opened the Ritz-Carlton.
Oh, there was an incident that I referring to in the book, so maybe I give you back that incident. And I was also a hierarchy manager, but I looked into quality management, Baldrige criteria, etc., and I realized that's passé. Taylorism is passé. Leadership is the right thing, and we started to empower people. Started to look at continuous improvement, meaning eliminating mistakes and become better. But in the very beginning, I was running the first hotel. Our number one complaint was slow room service. That was the number one complaint hotel, and it was pretty strong, heavy so. Guests annoyed. We said in half an hour room service will be there, and it didn't show up. They had to go to a meeting, etc. What did I do as a hierarchy manager? I called the manager in room service and said, I don't want this to happen again. Do you understand? Read my lips. Of course, it kept on happening. A few years later, it was still the number one complaint in that hotel. In the meantime, I wasn't running the hotel anymore. I was running the company. But we had now moved into continuous improvement. We created a team to connect to that process. That's the key. Rooms of order taker, busboy, waiter, cook, to find the root cause of slow service. It turned out everything worked fine until they came to the elevator. Slow, very long way to elevators sometimes. So engineers were pulled into the team. What's happening? Everything's working fine. We called OTs everything's working fine. So one of the waiters took a chair and sat in the elevator, rode up and down to see what happens. And soon there's a houseman. Houseman supplied the maids with the linen, with the shampoo and so on. Houseman comes in, goes to another floor, blocks open the door of the elevator, goes out and comes in with some linen. Goes to another floor and comes back with some linen. He goes back down, blocks up, takes it out. Another houseman comes in, does the same thing. So now the laundry is involved. So the laundry says, well, of course, we only have 2 sets of linen. A hotel needs 3 sets. One is on the bed, one is in traffic, one is being washed. We have only 2 sets, so we're always a little bit short of linen, so we steal linen from each other. So the laundry manager is involved. Now the laundry manager was in the hotel before we opened the hotel, working for me. And he said, why do we have only 2 sets of linen? Well, and before the hotel opens, our budget was very tight, and Mr. Schulze, which happens to be me, cut out 1 set of linen. And it was never done, and only the replacement was replaced, not 1 new set of linen was put in. So for years, we added 1 set of linen, and slow room service was cut down by 78%. So the guilty person was sitting here. That was root cause. Of course, we had teams in every hotel, teams working on various defects, looking for the root cause. Continuous improvement.
How do you deal with the customer who is truly impossible and can't be pleased?
Well, there are 3 types of customers. Well, first of all, we have to understand that the dissatisfied customer, really dissatisfied customer, let's understand that too. They become terrorists against your organization. You better do something about it. Then there are the neutral ones, they're the satisfied one. They're satisfied. They go somewhere else if they have a better deal. And then there's the loyal one, they're yours. But within all customer bases, there are some that will complain because they actually have a reason to complain. 96%, over 96%, we know that from every study, they just want to get rid of their frustration. And not her, I call a manager, they want to get rid of it. Then there are 3% who actually there's something happened where a remedy should be made, not charging for the room or whatever. And then there are less than 1%. Frankly, don't anybody tell anybody. We call that the jerk factor. This happens to exist. They just like to complain, and they look for something. They're frankly very, very rare. So there's a danger that the organization puts everything into that 1%. So I made it very clear. If there is a real extreme, you're not empowered for that extreme to throw them out of the hotel or something. I'm the only one who can do that. So I did have a call one day and said, Horst, there is this guest from hell here. Every morning, the general manager calls. Every morning comes to my office, sits there for half an hour complaining about absolutely everything. It said it is unbearable, but not only that, Horst. He's on a club level, and he pinched 3 of the ladies that are upstairs somewhere. I said, whoa, wait a minute. This one will be expelled. And here's how you do it. You double lock the room. When he comes back, you say, Mr. Jones, we are committed to make sure that every guest is happy. And we have tried everything with you, and forgive us, we were unsuccessful. We try something new now. We're sending you to another hotel. We have the limousine is waiting for you, the reservation is made, we help you pack, but you have to go to another hotel. And you're expelled. Simple as that. But it is so that you will be happy. And I knew he would find me. Those people find me. And sure enough, I got this telephone call. I knew it would happen. And I heard somebody very angry, suing me on the telephone already, and owning the company, and owning me, and destroying me. And I said, Mr. Jones, if you sue me, understand, I will show up with the 3 ladies that you pinched. They will be in the courtroom with me. And of course, he never sued us. But interesting enough, a number of months later, 6, 8 months later, I got a call from another hotel and said, Horst, I know I'm not allowed to expel somebody, but there is this guest from hell here. He comes every morning to my office. Not only that, he pinched the ladies. I said, oh, Mr. Jones is in your hotel. He said, how did you know? I said, here's what you do. And he called me back when Mr. Jones came back, and they had a double locked, and he said, we want you to be happy. He said, oh no, not again. And he was going, this happens, but it's very rare. We cannot put everybody into that category. We have to really, and that's difficult to delegate. So I didn't delegate that part.
So you instituted a problem solving and a problem resolution class at the Ritz-Carlton, right? So tell us about what that class was.
Well, every employee is certified, has to be certified in problem resolution. So how to handle a complaint. And I kind of touched on that. Everybody who gets a complaint owns the complaint. Everybody says, please forgive me. Not, oh, they do it all the time, and or the manager, or oh, not again, or these things happen when you complain. But if the employee said, please forgive me, I'm so sorry this happened, the guest usually, most of them were embarrassed that they even complained. And this is the 96%. But we then try to do something anyway for them. Send them something in the room, send them a fruit basket in the room, bought them breakfast or something. And they were astonished that a given employee would do that. And again, this actually moves a guest from dissatisfaction to loyalty. In my opinion, and I feel very strong, if you are an operating company, you do actually 4 things. Number 1 that you should be doing is keep the guests that you have. And that was a reaction to that. Number 2, you find new guests. Number 3, you get as much money from the guests as you can. Aha, because you give value. And number 4, you work on your efficiencies, not on your cost cutting. There's a great deal about cost cutting. People get a reward for cost cutting. Cost cutting usually means I take something away from the guest. I make the soap a little smaller, and the corporate office applauds me for cost management. But it just hurt the brand. Continuous improvement means I eliminate my mistake, and consequently my product is better, my cost is lower. So those are the things you do as a great organization, and you will have a great organization.
And so that's the difference between efficiency and cost cutting.
That's the difference between efficiency and cost cutting. Cost cutting, I mean, I can walk into any business and cut costs in a moment. I mean, walk into a hotel, you can take the flowers away, stop the piano from playing, and so on. And a corporate office that sits somewhere hundreds of miles away will applaud you for being a great manager of money. But you're just destroying the brand.
You talked about this a little bit earlier, but tell us the importance of vision statements.
I believe that is absolutely essential. In life, you have to have a destination. You wouldn't go on a trip today without knowing where you're going. Yet that trip only lasts a day or a week or whatever. Yet you're making a plan, you know where to go, you know the destination, you know how you decide how to go there, what to take there. You know in your mind how it looks there. Yet here you're going on a years and years journey of your life in your company, and you have a destination. Your vision statement is the destination. And there has to be, and once you establish a vision statement as the leader, you have to question yourself though, is it good for all concerned? Is it good for the customer? Is it good for the investor? Is it good for me? Is it good for the employees? Is it good for society? Once I know that clearly, I will know how to lead. Because in that moment, I have no right to compromise anymore. Once I establish clearly, this vision is of value for all concerned, and all can be proud of it. Once I know that, I know I cannot compromise, not for anybody, not for myself. I must stand for that vision. I'm in that moment the standard setter. I cannot give that to anybody else, because I know that it's good for all concerned, and I'm here to lead people to that point. Invite people to join it. Not anymore hire people for a function, but hire people for that purpose, for that vision. It's beautiful. And it is beneficial to the organization. and of value for everybody, of the employees. Now the employees are joining. You show them that, but you show them at the same time the motive of it, because it gives us recognition, gives us honor, gives us opportunity for you, gives more money for everyone. So it's the thing to do. If you don't have it, you're just working. Again, the concentration is just the money of today and not the beauty of the future, and consequently more money.
You also talk about how leadership is an acquired skill. What are some things that you've done to build your leadership skills?
Well, clearly, a part of this process, and part of it is a feeling, and part of the process. I had to remind myself, I'm not defining myself by being tough. And mind you, when you come from a hierarchy background, you think that's it. You should know everything. You should give an answer to everything, even if you don't know it, because otherwise you're not a leader. And I came to that recognition very clearly, that the people that work a certain job function know that function better than I do, whom I'm sitting in the office. So consequently, I adjusted myself and reevaluated myself what I'm doing, and then applied the steps that it would take to do. Now, it was sometimes difficult, for example, not to give an answer move from problem to solution immediately, my solution. Sometimes it was difficult to say, let's analyze that. What does everybody think? Yes, in fact, I went so far, I hired somebody, a very strong quality person, and made sure I hired that person to teach me and tell me every time I went wrong for a while. And so it took a year. After a year, it was norm to be a leader rather than a manager. I knew that I needed it. Not everybody needs that, but I know a person can adjust from being a hierarchy manager to be a leader. I knew it. I knew in my case I was so deep in that I actually needed help. So I hired somebody.
Your epilogue mentions your Christian faith. Tell us how your beliefs influence your drive for excellence.
Well, yeah. Faith is one of those things. I mean, faith. What is faith? It's just a decision that you made somewhere. I didn't make a decision not to believe, or you made a decision to believe. Everything in life is a decision. In fact, in this case, a very unique one. It may evolve, that decision, or you make it at once. I made a decision that I'm not in charge, that there may be something higher in charge. I made that decision. And of course, once you do that and studied what is the answers to that, then you run into, in my case, a very meaningful situation where I read that Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. And it's such an overwhelming thing if you let that sounds like a few words, but if you let that really move in your mind, I agonize with that, and I know I can't do that, but I can come closer to it. That's it. I can make the decision that everybody around me is of value, that they all have, that they're human beings, no different in life, that as human beings, nobody can claim importance over the next human being. And it helped, of course. And then you look at your employees and everybody like that, and clearly your guests too. Then you say, okay, they have real value. There's a incident, an interesting story, service story. It's not a religious thing. That Saint Benedict wrote a message to his monasteries and said to them, if a guest arrives, treat him as if it was Jesus himself. Bow down, be sure they have dinner, be sure you can come and wash their feet before you have dinner. Now, that service, we're not going quite that far, but I try to see how far I can go in that respect. This is a great, the whole thing of religion, all it, to me it meant is great value, wow, great value. Not be dependent on my own interpretation, but be dependent on something that is steady relative to value. And this thing about love your neighbor as yourself, I mean, if you let it go through your mind, very careful. Not look at, but it's very, very deep. And all of a sudden you have to look, this is my neighbor. Yeah. Well, that's how this developed. And of course, the whole thing developed, I think you see that when I had cancer and was told that I have 1 year. And then those analyses are very close to you. And I assure you, anybody who will face it will make the same analysis.
Well, you gave us some great insights today, so thank you so much for joining us.
I was delighted to be with you.
Thank you. And we'll see you next time on Sarder TV.